Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Tao of the Day. This is Martin John, and we're here to talk about the Tao Te Ching. The Tao Te Ching is an ancient text written in the 6th century BC, presumably Gai Lao Tzu. And if you've heard this show before, you realize that you will realize, if you haven't already, that I'm not going to talk about Lao Tzu, where this comes from, what the 6th century BC looked like. But we're going to talk about the Tao as it relates to our experience, our experiencing of the Tao. The Tao Te Ching talks about the Tao as the Great Mother, talks about Tao as the void. It talks about Tao as everything that manifestation is not. Tao is what is potential. Tao is substance. And the universe, our lives, our planets that we see, the stars that we see, all of these things are manifestation to express Tao in some way. Everything has Tao in it. Everything that is physical, everything, every thought, every feeling, every emotion. And when you meditate, if you are practiced at meditating, you might realize that there is a you that's beyond all of that emotion, all of those feelings, all of it. There is a you behind it all. And that you is Tao. And that you is connected to everyone and everything, whether it's animate or inanimate. Whether it's an imaginary thing, because even imagination has to come from our minds, and our minds are manifestation. And so Tao is beyond it all. And that's what this show is. This show is to look at Tao as an oracle. Look at it. I ask you to pick a number and we will talk about what is coming up for you in that verse of the Tao. JK, how are you doing, dear? Oh, you're breaking up. How was that?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Much better. Yeah,
Oh,
that's better.
good.
Seems
How are
like you
you?
were being suffocated or something.
Maybe.
Yeah,
No, I don't feel suffocated. That's good. It's
that's
nice and
good. That's
crisp
good.
here. So,
Yeah.
anywho, well,
Anywho.
I had an interesting experience. I don't know if I'll be able to talk about it clearly, but we'll try. Um, well, I got to meet some family members last night actually, that I haven't seen in a long time. Um, and that question of who are you came up a lot. So it was really funny because at one point, one of my cousins just kept asking me that over and over again. I was like, I don't know what you mean. Like, I'm just me. And I don't know. I
Yeah.
thought it was kind of interesting with
Yeah. So
what you
you're
were
just
talking
saying,
about.
like, it's not the person that you weren't expressing in the same way that your cousin expected you to express, is
Yeah, no, I
what
don't
I'm
think
hearing.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was fine. I mean, we had a great time. But we were even talking about, because we have this interesting dynamic in my family. Yeah, if you saw me on the street, I'm very white looking, but then we have the Hispanic part of us.
Mm.
And we were talking about which box do you check on your race. And hearing my aunt talk about, she's like, I've been confused about that my whole life. She goes, I really don't know. And her kids are even more so. Her husband was Mexican, so she has Puerto Rican, Mexican, and then English, I think.
Mm.
Um, and it's a funny mix. And that came up a lot. But they were, I think, to some regard, I found myself kind of falling into a role, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then saying, I don't know that I want to do that, and just saying, no, this is me. I mean, they're like, why aren't you uptight? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I'm not sure how to answer that question. So it was just kind of interesting when you were starting to talk about your mind being manifestation and all the stuff around you, that experience of someone really asking who you are.
Right.
And I didn't even try to really answer the question. So I'm like, man, I don't know. I'm still figuring all that out. I'm just
Yeah.
me, and was really my answer. Um, but it was kind of an interesting thing. And then to go into even more so of, your background and your race and all those pieces that make up who we are in the manifestation, I guess.
Right. Yeah. And that's that's a big, I think that's something you mature into, the idea, like, of course, you in the state that you're at, in the space that you're at, if you wanted to revert back to manifestation, you can actually use that argument to be more grounded in manifestation, just like they are grounded in manifestation. So you define yourself by not defining yourself, right? That's it. I know I did things like that when I was younger because I'm a contrarian. And so if people have that contrarian sort of thing, they could use like this journey of enlightenment stuff to actually solidify and root themselves even more to manifestation. Not more, but root themselves to manifestation so they feel comfortable, like defining themselves in that space of being like, well, I don't want to define myself at all either, right? Like, but then when you can actually just ponder it rather than stand on it, right? Like rather than plant your flag there, you can just go, well, I guess I'm not any of those things, right? I'm not just, Hispanic, and I'm not just Caucasian, but these are the substances being, right? That's the feminine. That's the core being who you are. And then structure tries to organize the being. Like you are healthy, you are unhealthy. You have ADHD, you have ADD. You're Caucasian, you're Hispanic. Like I did enumerating for the census once, and the way that they describe things, I was just like, oh, if you're Mexican, you're Hispanic, but you're not Caucasian, you're Indian.
Yeah.
And so like it's really interesting how this country decides to separate. Because we can't wrap our heads around in this country the diversity of types of structures that are out there, right? Like, if I go to Guatemala, none of those people would consider themselves Hispanic, right? Because like their first language is their native language, which they have like 500.
Yeah.
And then they have the governmental language, which is Spanish, but they don't consider themselves Hispanic.
It's so interesting. Like you were laughing because I don't know, somebody came up at one point. They're like, can we just have like a spicy light category? Because they're not quite, I don't know. It was just, we were just laughing because there was not a box, that you can check that can say who you are. But above that, getting the question of who are you was even more so interesting because, we were having that conversation, but then later on it became like, who are you inside?
Right.
And I was like, that was just a different dynamic. It was kind of a little Twilight Zone for me because I was like, I don't know, I'm just me,
Right.
and going back to the past a little bit in that space and deciding, you fit in this role, right? I fit in that line, I fit in that box. And then deciding, I really don't want to do that because I don't fit in that box anymore.
Right.
I don't want to define it. I'm like just going to be here. And it was an interesting journey with that and going back there. But I'm glad I had the opportunity because I haven't seen those people we're talking 5+ years.
Yeah.
So.
And it's great to reconnect with people. And because when you do that, you get to see a bit of yourself from 5 years ago.
Yeah. And it was just very interesting to hear, if I only had this
right?
would be better. A lot of that.
It's so like the growth that we experience is not being experienced by everybody. And you get to go in there. And once again, this is just you the world, this is just manifestation. This is just Tao reflecting yourself back to you. And it's just showing you yourself. It's showing you this is where you were. This is how you thought. This is what your world was. And when you see that, and you know, like, and there's all of this stuff that comes with that, because you could experience that and you can appreciate it and just smile and just be like, wow, that's far out, you know? Yeah. And this happens with people when they're on a journey in which they pat themselves on the back a lot. And I don't really promote doing that very much. But when you pat yourself on the back for your healing journey, you look at them and say, oh, they're going to have to grow so much. And you know, like you kind of stick your nose up in the air and become arrogant about your journey. But it's like they're doing what they do and you're not a part of it. And they're not even, right? They are being sustained in support of the gift of your life. They're not other. The moment you look at them and think of them as other and think of them as they're on a journey that is, you know, I'm moving, then you're already, you're back to your old self.
You're back where you were.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I wasn't, because I just hugged them and I said a lot of, you know, you're perfect. You're just perfect the way you are. Like, just be you. You don't need a kid. You don't need, because I tried to explain a little bit of, you know, you can't ground yourself in those things. You've got to find it inside, and just showing love, you know, because one of the things that came up that was even more interesting was, the conversation around that I come to the city and I talk to people. And they're like, what do you mean you talk to people? I was like, well, there was a lady on the train. She was telling me about her her doctor visit. And then I was talking to this other lady, very nice woman. We were just walking. And she's from the Philippines. And she was saying how she first got here to America and how she only had a couple $100. And she was so thankful of her journey and how fearful she is in this climate today. You know, even though she's a citizen, she's here. She's been here probably longer than I've been alive, but she was still so scared. And I wound up, like, we were talking about it, she started crying, and I just gave her a hug. And I don't know this woman.
Right.
And we just kind of shared a moment, and I just let her talk. So for whatever reason, and that's kind of how I felt about my family. And it's funny because going into the conversation, going into that room, I didn't know how it was going to go. And I kind of left my expectations at the door. But I was a little bit afraid of being angry about something. I didn't even know what. You know, am I going to be able to, it's kind of like what you were talking about yesterday. Am I able to not be angry, not be that person that I was? Not in context of anybody else, but just for me. And I wanted to love them. And then getting there and showing up, and just like when somebody's sitting there and telling you, you know, I'm miserable in my life. I wasn't really thinking about me at that point, my growth or whatever. I just wanted to hug her, you know, because it broke my heart. It was just, I was like, I'm so sorry you feel that way, because you don't have to. And just being there.
But see, the thing is at this moment, she absolutely has to.
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And the thing, and this is why it can be offensive to people when I'm like, life is easy. Because you can take that and be like, get it up you. There's no, like, I know my life, you know, and people can really believe that you're, you know, and for decades we did the fake it till you make it sort of thing. You know, since the 70s, we've been doing this positive thinking. Get rid of anybody that shows any negativity in your life and like all of that. And it's like every time you get rid of one, you just collect another.
Yes.
You know,
very much
and so it's not about like thinking positive. Yes, you can start there. But like the hard work still has to be done. And it's not Doesn't really take that long, but you do have to have a good grounding of who you are and recognize, again, my terminology, what you're living under the influence of and what's influencing you to feel these ways that are miserable and all of that.
Yeah. No, it was a good, I definitely have some work to do. I wouldn't say I was
Oh,
triggered,
absolutely. No,
but I took
you'll
some
never be
notes.
done. You'll never be done.
Oh, no.
And so, yeah, and the
Uh-uh.
idea that we have to even express, yes, there's work to be done. Of course there is.
Yeah.
Your work will be done when you die. So if you're speaking, there's work to be done.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's, you got a number?
I don't.
Well, then
You
we'll
might.
do a random one. Yeah.
Thank
73.
you. Okay.
This is
I don't know.
really good. So I don't want you to drop off when your time is up, because I think this will relate back to a lot of the stories that you've been telling today. It's 73. Nothing falls through. Let me make sure nothing falls through. There are men who love feeling, and to feel they kill. There are men who love feeling, and to do so remain calm. Who's to say which will experience more turmoil? There is purpose in walking with death, as there is in walking with life. The inner workings of Tao can never be understood. It makes no commands, yet all things come on their own accord. It never acts, but all things act on its behalf. It is empty, yet within it lies all things and their master plans. Tao is a net holding all things together, connected. Its mesh is wide, but it holds so well, nothing falls through.
I like that one. Can you read it again?
Yeah, I'll read it again. You go down and come back up so we don't end right when you're in the middle of bumping
All
out.
right.
There are men who love feeling, and to feel they kill. There are men who love feeling, and to do so remain calm. Who's to say which will experience more turmoil? There is purpose in walking with death, as there is in walking with life. The inner workings of Tao can never be understood. It makes no commands, yet all things come on their own accord. It never acts, but all things act on its behalf. It is empty, yet within it lies all things and their master plans. Tao is a net holding all things together, connected. Its mesh is wide, but it holds so well nothing falls through.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think, that connectivity is huge within a lot of those stories and the experiences I was having yesterday. And being connected to family, not family, just another person. That came up a lot yesterday for me.
The thing that pops out for me in this one for you in this moment
Say that three times fast.
is that you're going to find that like your family, let's say, your family loves to feel, and to feel at this time like they're on this doom and gloom sort of my life is miserable, right? Mm-hmm. Kind of path. And there is purpose in walking with death, as there is in walking with life. The inner workings of Tao can never be understood, right? So no matter what their path is, there's purpose in that. You don't know what the purpose is, and they don't know what the purpose is. But it's there and it's coming out. No matter if you're thinking positive or thinking negative. Yeah. It doesn't matter what it is you're doing. Either way, you're the one doing. Now, Tao makes no commands, yet all things come on their own accord. So if you're on the doom and gloom path, you come on your own accord. You take the doom and gloom path, and you get inspired to do whatever you're going to do with it. It never acts, but all things act on its behalf. Your family is acting on behalf of Tao, presenting you with context for your experience. Now you're acting on Tao's behalf, presenting them with context for their experience.
Yeah.
It is empty, yet within it lies all things and their master plans. The master plan for you, the master, and because you and I know each other, there's a master plan for me, and there's a master plan for all of the people that you're connected with, and all of the hugs that you've given, all of the things. Like, this is all working as one thing. This is all one organism.
And I was saying that actually last night because I was trying to explain like the idea of my experience of, we're just having that kind of conversation. And I said, no, but we can have the same experience. And I was like, I don't think so, and we were just going back and forth with that. But where it came back to the end of the conversation, I said, but we are still connected and we're still one being. And I did actually say those words. And I thought about it after I said it. And then I started thinking about my day and, trying to, what really at the end of it, that whole experience for me and being asked many times yesterday, I can't tell you 8 or 9 times, who are you? And
Yeah.
coming back to wanting to explore that, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much healing I've done, there's still more there. And going back, and it felt like it was, for me, regardless of everybody else going around, is who are you? And not knowing and being okay with not knowing, because I always had to know before. And then
Yeah.
saying, you've got to look further because I don't know my purpose. It's not apparent to me.
Right.
So what am I going to do now? What's next for me? You have all these experiences, you have your triggers, you have your process for working through them. But what does that mean? And how does that kind of go out into the world? And really focusing on some of the behaviors that I struggle with and trying to find new ways that are my own on how to deal with them and be able to be whoever I'm inspired to be. So like what you were saying in that verse, some people kill, some people
Remain
don't, I
calm.
guess. Yeah. And so, somewhere in between, because those are the two extremes that, Dal talks about quite a bit, these extremes that we have. And then somewhere in between, I'll be in there somewhere. And sometimes I'll want to kill. And
Yep,
sometimes I will be
absolutely.
calm,
And that's
and
okay.
being all of it. Yeah.
Right, because you are all of it, right? Like,
Yes.
the thing is when you decide, when you make the decision that you're one or the other, that's when things start to get, that's when you start to act. Now, that is driven by Tao. That is inspired by Tao as well. But when you believe it's you and you start to, and then you cement yourself in that, once again, that's Tao.
Put your will on there, yeah.
Right, but it creates turmoil. The turmoil is created in your mind because you believe it's you.
Mm-hmm.
And when you recognize that, I'm killing, but I'm killing because I need control and I need all of this and stuff. And then that will help you blossom into, if again, I always say, if anybody who's going to work with me and they just happen to be a bad person, they're going to be, if in their soul, they're just like this bad person, they're going to be a better bad person. They're going to do those things with love. And bad being they have a tendency to do something, whether it's you. But I don't believe that is ever going to be true, because when you do open and wake up to yourself, it's not, you're no longer trying to play a role, and you're no longer telling yourself you have to play a role. You're no longer under the influence of all of these things that are around you.
Yeah, I think if you're still in that, I think you're probably being influenced by yourself to some degree.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to quantify or qualify what someone's doing. I mean, Tao may need,
killers out there too.
Yeah, absolutely. And if that's the case, and if that's truly who you are, I would tend to think that that's not. But if it is, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, finding a way to love regardless.
Right. And to allow them to be who they are and open my mind to the idea that there's potential out there beyond my comprehension,
Yeah, it's a very interesting. That one is a very interesting one. I don't think I've gotten that one before. Um,
Yeah.
but
You
that
know,
idea of the turmoil is interesting. Go on. Sorry.
and it says like there is purpose in walking with death as there is in walking with life. And we don't know the inner workings, right? And that's why it says the inner workings of Tao can never be understood. So the reason the reason I became an addict, and I was an addict for 13 years, and I went through, and the reason that I got sober and the reason that I'm here and all, I don't know. I'm just doing what I do. And I put story on all of that as to tell me why I was doing what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
But none of that was real. It was just I was being inspired by Tao. In the end, now, yes, I needed story so I could have an identity and I can do all of this stuff. And I can pat myself on the back and do all of that. But Tao never acts, but all things act on its behalf. It is empty, yet within it lies all things in their master plans. And people, I don't know, someone told me the other day they could not see me, as a gang member, and they could not see me as an addict, and they could not see me as all that. And I'm always like, yeah, of course not, because if you could, then I wouldn't have grown.
Yeah.
Right? I wouldn't have done the actual work. I would have only done the superficial work to be like, I got time. And it's like, yeah, but I can still see you going out there and kicking people in the face, it's just like, yeah, well, I don't do that anymore, and that's not even an option for me anymore. You know what I mean? And so, as you were talking about your hugging, that's where this last line really shone. Tao is a net holding all things together, connected, its mesh is wide, but it holds so well nothing falls through. And all of the hugging that you talked about doing yesterday,
you did do a lot of hugging. I didn't even think about that.
You're literally, its mesh is wide, meaning that here you are walking around doing your thing, and you're acting as the mesh of Tao, holding all things together.
Yeah, and it was just what I did, like you're saying. It wasn't for anything. Like I was genuinely interested in the people that I met with, and I said when they were like, why would you talk to somebody on the train? I'm like, why wouldn't you?
Right.
Why not? The lady was looking at me, or when I'm just walking in the street, this older lady, she was going slow, and we were both kind of looking at each other to figure out whether we should cross the street or not. And, I just looked and I started laughing, and she was laughing, and we just were walking in the same direction. I'm like, why not talk to this woman? And I struggled a little bit with, how do I put back in the universe? How do I, you have your thing, right? What's going to be my thing?
Okay. First of all, I know, but that is you just do, you don't, if you think Tao is looking for something from you, that becomes transactional. Tao doesn't care.
It wasn't that. It was about wanting, I don't know. I was just exploring, and this was probably a month ago. I was just exploring the idea of, am I going to be able to find my thing? A thing, and that's only momentarily. And saying
No, I
that I have to give back.
No, I get it. It crosses your mind of just
yes.
in this new experience that I'm having. And all I would say is that, well, you got here. So
yeah, I was thinking more like, how am I going to show this love I feel inside? And how do I do that? And it's a funny question because I don't have to do anything.
Have you heard of Amma?
Amma
is the hugging saint. She literally has these big events, and I don't know how this all works and stuff. Like, but she just hugs. She just hugs people, and like that hugging of people is life changing for some people.
Yeah, and
but
during
I'm just saying,
COVID,
like, you know, there isn't anything you have to do.
exactly. And coming
Yeah.
to that conclusion that there isn't anything I'm going to do. And anytime I try to do something, I fuck it up. Like it's because I'm trying and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
fuck it up royally. And if I
Yeah. You
just
can't.
go, it's great. Because
Yeah. If you just
there's
allow,
nothing for
right,
me to do. You
like,
just let the net hold you, you
right,
know?
and
Stop trying to
that,
figure
and
out where you're supposed to be positioned in that net.
yeah, and your work will happen regardless.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, regardless of you having a plan, you know, like having a planner and telling yourself, this is what I'm going to do you cannot stop Tao from communicating with you because you are Tao.
Yeah. And it is beautiful. It's a beautiful way of looking at it and being able to keep going and flowing with the universe as opposed to that resistance and trying to figure out, well, what's my thing? Well, you don't have to have one, come
Right.
on, hello, are you in there? Like, and just coming back to that conclusion over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And it was really in this idea of loving and this idea of hugging. I mean, when I spoke to you first, I told you I didn't like hugs.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I didn't like them, guess what? I sure damn do. So
Yep.
coming back to that, because I did have a flag in that I'm cold and that was it. That was me. That defined me. And then realizing that I'm not and saying, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that about me and being able to actually be affectionate with people. I'm still finding that within myself. And I don't know, it's beautiful. There's just back to love and being able to love others as yourself, right?
Right.
Like that idea. And finding that compassion, finding that love for the killer or otherwise, or calm person. So
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much.
thank you. Thanks for going on a ride with me this morning. All right. I love you.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, I had Mojo in. Mojo, if you're still up, you can come on up. Otherwise, I'll go on. Mojo, congratulations on the We Are the World remake. Congrats. That's beautiful. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and pick a random number. And we'll keep talking unless someone else wants to come up and pick a number. Love it when I get to chat a little bit about the Tao. It's interesting. I just mentioned Mojo and the We Are the World, and I'll come back to my 29, which is, but I'm bringing Melissa up, which is make the world a better you. We are the world. Look at that. Melissa, how are you?
I am doing okay, my friend. It's good to hear
That's
your
good.
voice.
Oh, thank you.
I can't believe JK's not a hugger. She seems like a very loving, huggable.
Well, she wasn't. Is now.
I know. I heard her say that, and I'm just like, JK, I want to give you a hug. Okay, so tell me more about this woman you were talking about that does these hugging events. Because you know me, I am a hugger, Martin John. I would just hug the whole world. You know where you're talking about we are the world. I am the world of a hugger. That I just want to hug the whole world.
Amma is her name, AMMA, and she does events all over the world where people will line up and she'll just hug them. And
so it's like you got the free hug sign and you just like line up a bunch of people and you just hug them.
Yeah, this is her life's work, So like there are, it's an event of like, and I don't, like I've never visited Amma, but she's internationally recognized for the work that she does. She's, she's been doing this since the 80s. let's see. She has a South Indian tour happening in February. Like, I don't know. Like, so she's the hugging saint, and she goes around and hugs and the people that I know that have gone to her events say, like, she's clear, right? So if you're attuned to the subtle, like stepping into a space where she is, like, you feel that. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like being in the presence of a clear channel. And then you know how when you're talking to someone and you can tell when they lose interest or stop paying attention. It's just a subtle little thing. The attention, from what I understand, again, I've never been to an Amma event. From what I understand, when you are in the presence and like when it's your turn, the amount of attention that she gives you in terms of depth is so palpable that, there are times where, you and I are talking and then I'll just take a pause and then you'll open up. Like maybe not even speaking, and just like you just start to feel that well up. Like that's being seen. And what she does is, from my understanding, so profound that healing can happen spontaneously. Because we are all one. And here's someone that is seeing you and seeing the you that maybe you've never seen so deeply, and loving you and inviting that you to be seen by you. And so that's what Amma does.
I love it.
And I again, I'm not. So
don't say you're not a hugger, Martin John.
No,
It'll
I'm
break
a hugger.
My heart.
I'm a huge hugger. But so there is, Ram Dass talks about God, guru, and self. They're all the same. And that means you can look toward God and find your direction. You can look toward a guru, and through that you can find direction, or you can look towards self. And for whatever reason, for me, it's always been self. There was a time where it was God, but I realized that I doubted God a lot, in the way that I was raised and all of this. So I couldn't put all of my faith in that, especially because of how it was presented to me. And so every time I grew, and I look to the Tao, but I even wrote my own rendition of the Tao. So it's like that is even more kind of cementing the self and looking inward, because it's everywhere. Like God is in everything. God is in you.
True.
So,
yeah.
So there's no reason
for that one.
There is no reason for, in my mind at least, to look outside of myself for that. And then guru, same thing. It's like it's another person that is, you can just elevate them, or they elevate themselves to a level in which they could guide you to yourself. And so for all the pomp and circumstance of gurus, and Amma is a guru of sorts. I've never been inclined to go. Like, I saw one time that she was there, and I was like, oh, that'd be cool. And I was like, am I interested in doing that? And I was like, no, I'm not. And it was just not there. It wasn't like the energy to like even research it wasn't. I didn't even have that energy to research it. So I was like, I'm not going to try. If it happens, it happens. That's good. But I was like, oh, I guess my friend is going to be there. Like I have friends that visit them every time they come to Chicago and stuff. So I was like, oh, my friends are going to be there. That's nice. But then I just let it go. But I would look her up and check it out, especially because she does do like tours and stuff. And so, and it's from what I understand, it's a heck of an experience.
Well, I might just do that because, as I told you when I got my 235 hugs from the kiddos that day, hugging is, that's emotional currency for me, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, from like, people have told me stories about just kind of being in the space and, and it just being, once they get in front of Amma, like everything falls away, and it's just being seen and being at one with everything. It's and then being held in this really intense way. All I know is what I've heard. I've never heard anybody say, "Yeah, that was a waste of my time." Right? So I don't, but that's Amma. Yeah, I'm glad, I can talk about it, I guess. But yeah.
Well, based on your definition of a guru, I just have to tell you that you're one, because you do help people to find themselves.
Yeah. In all of my work, I always try and distance myself from being that kind of guru, that's going to be around. I want people to find it themselves. And if they need a guru, absolutely go find one. I'm not going to necessarily want to jump into that role, of, so many gurus, have had followers and, and then there's in my mind, there's problems with that. You get to live under the influence. All of their followers, could, I'm not saying they do, but could live under the influence of their, and I don't want you or JK or anybody else like living under my influence, because you're so much more than what I could ever pull out of you, or inspire you to be. And that is what I want in the world, right? I want Melissa and JK out there doing what they do, because that's a world I want to live in.
Aw, you're so wonderful. See, that's what makes you a guru, because you want us to be aware and to be our own special, unique selves.
Yeah. Like there's nothing I can do to improve upon you guys.
See, I would have to differ, because I think you're presenting the way that you see us and letting us be seen and leading us to seeing ourselves. I think that is exactly what you were saying about being a guru.
Well, I do see it. I do see it differently, but I'm not going to argue, because we're here on the Down of the Day show.
I don't want to argue with you.
And the other day when we were talking, when I sometimes I mentioned, because you and I talk on this show regularly, so I'll mention you while talking to JK or something, or I'll mention you while talking to Julie or whatever. And it was, and I just wanted to kind of circle back. And yes, everybody deserves to be treated with respect. There's no question in my mind that that's the case. You just don't have the right to be.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. I agree with that. Even though Julie said I was entitled, or that's what I took from that the other day.
Yeah, well, it's and it is.
People have that need. I mean, I think that. Like the God, like you were saying, the God, that God put, and JK said it too, that love that's inside of us, right. And I think that everybody deserves to feel that, like the love that's inside me, instead of being the hangry Melissa that's a bitch.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. It's like, yes, we all deserve to be treated with respect, which then means we all have the responsibility to treat others with respect, always. Right? And that's not possible. And that's why we don't have the right to be treated with respect. We deserve it. But because sometimes Melissa gets hangry,
Yes, she
right?
does.
And she's going to inadvertently disrespect somebody.
So that's always going to be the case? I'm not going to get to a point where I'm past that, Martin John.
There's always going to be something. And remember,
Always.
you're being sustained as part of the gift of someone else's life. Their life may require you to be a bitch. So that they can realize themselves through that. It's not that you're being bad. You're just like we read in number 73. I'm going to go back to it really quick. There is purpose in walking with death as there is in walking with life. The inner workings of Tao can never be understood. It makes no commands, yet all things come on their own accord. It never acts, but all things act on its behalf. You're acting on behalf of God. God's like, look, this woman needs to, this not you, but the person that you're interacting with needs to have this experience. Melissa's good for this. I'm just going to have her, because Melissa needs to have this experience, this experience of being hangry. So I got a person that needs to be yelled at, and I got a person that needs to have the experience of yelling at somebody. So I'm going to put these two together. It's not you, right? You are just doing what you do. And it never acts, but all things act on its behalf. It is empty, yet in it lies all things and their master plan. This is part of your master plan. Your preconceived idea that you have to be perfect in some definition. I don't know what that definition is. That is you stepping into the role of God. God knows what you need. You need to be hangry right now so you can go through this experience. And she needs you to be hangry so that she can go through her experience. Now, if you just chalk everything up and say, well, it's not me, it's God, without taking some responsibility for your experience and just being like, oh, I'm hangry. I don't like that I did that, Now you're in conversation with God and you're going to become you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It kind of, though, when you were saying that, I mean, it was making me think like, oh, I'm just like a chess piece and God's big plan. He's just moving things around and letting, and I definitely believe God. And, it's kind of hard. Like, I mean, I know that it's hard to understand, just like the Tao is hard to understand that, God is hard to understand in the way.
You just dropped out. Come back up. God is hard to understand. There's no question about that. But it's, there's a lot there. I want to hear you out.
Yeah, God is hard to understand and life is hard to understand. But I think, like you were saying, things happen for a reason. And I was very surprised. I got a phone call last night from Shane, and I didn't see that happening. I didn't think there was anything left to be said between us, but I jump to conclusions sometimes. And so I don't know, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, no, you don't know. You
Martin
don't know.
John.
That's
There's
it.
so
That's
much
it.
I don't know, and it's frustrating.
See, this is the journey. This is the journey of healing. Like, there is, oh God, what is it? Plague. Number 71. I'm going to read through this really briefly, just because it connects to what we're talking about. I'll have you pick a number if you'd like to, but
well, actually 71 could be my number because that's the year I was born, so we'll go with that.
All right, so the title of it is To Know We Don't Know.
Oh, Yeah.
To be aware that one does not know is healthy in for all things. Avoiding awareness of this is the current plague. So avoiding awareness of the fact that we don't know. So thinking that we know or wanting to know is a current plague. By acknowledging that you have been infected by the plague, you can become aware and move towards healing. Become aware that you don't know. The master has cured herself. She is aware that she does not know. She is healthy in all aspects.
Well, I'm definitely aware that there is so much that I don't know, but I would love to think that I'm healthy in all aspects, but I'm not sure. Because I'm not the master yet. The master is. That's why we're at with the level I hope to attain. Is that kind of a correct understanding of that?
Well, and that's the thing. The master has cured herself. That's a past tense thing. You know, what it says here about the journey of moving toward that is by acknowledging you have been infected. By acknowledging you've been infected with the arrogance of knowing. By acknowledging you have been infected by presumption. By acknowledging that you think you know what this is doing. And why? Just like by acknowledging that, oh, this is bad. I don't want to, like, it's bad for me to have been hangry and all of this. It's like, well, like there's purpose behind it. You don't know. It's not immediately obvious what that purpose is. And maybe you'll never know. But it's an experience that you're going to integrate into your life, and it's going to change how you act in the world. And you don't know what that's going to be or how that's going to happen.
No, but I do think that maybe that situation, and we've talked a lot about this, was teaching me about being a leader. As much as I don't want to be one, I'm going kicking and screaming the whole way. And I say that kind of in jest, but, you know, if I do want to be effective in the role that I'm in, and I do, you know, that I do have to be a leader. And maybe God was showing me that's not how a leader is supposed to act, Melissa.
Right.
Because I'm a damn hardhead, Martin John, and sometimes, I know you know, he's like, you ain't got to tell me, sister. I'm figuring this out. But, you know, like you said, sometimes experiences happen for a reason. And like, you know, the whole thing with Shane and I, you know, I don't know. Like I said, I told him, you know, I thought, you know, that, you know, there was no talking, that you know, we weren't going to speak again. But that's that story in my head. Something happens and okay, that's the end. This is the story. There's no more. But, you know, maybe there was a reason for that. Maybe it was for me to think about, you know, my love language is really the gift of time. And I felt that, you know, I wasn't getting that. So maybe it's a chance for us to have a conversation. And if you do want to be in my life, you know, you have to be willing to give me the gift of time, because for me, that's something that's very important. So maybe it was, you know, teaching me like, you know, you got to communicate in a better way. I mean, both experiences seemed to happen very closely together. And in both experiences, I probably could have been a better Melissa, you know? And so maybe it's teaching me about, you know, being softer at times. And, you know, and KB was doing a show yesterday and she was talking about, you know, listening and to others to understand and not always trying to win the argument. Because, man, let me tell you, I've been wanting to be an argument winner for a very, very long time. Like, I want to win the damn argument, damn it, all the time. But that's not what a leader does. You got to be willing to hear other people's sides, you know, because there are always another side to, you know, a story.
And there's always different ways of solving a problem.
Exactly. Just because it's my way doesn't make it the right way, you know?
Right.
Because I have no MacGyver. I don't have the bubble gum and the hat and can't make a bomb out of it. You know what I'm saying? That to be silly, but you know what I'm trying to get across, right?
I do, yeah. Absolutely. And I think that, like stepping into every conversation, stepping into every situation, stepping into it with those fresh eyes of, just like, well, what's going to happen? Instead of, I know what this is.
Yeah, I'm feeling very much like I don't know what's going to happen, Yeah. And I guess, that's okay to not know,
It's scary.
Because, you knew my thinking, the librarian always knows, Martin John.
Yeah, they always know. And if they don't, they know how to find it with ease. This is not
exactly.
Life, right?
They could just pull a book off the shelf and that'll tell them everything they need to know.
Right.
Exactly.
But that's not.
Because there's always an answer, right?
One time someone told me the problem with me is that I only want to read the books that are going to be written in 10 years. Because I want to understand, this was a while ago, I want to understand what's going on now from the perspective of its solution or its dissolution. And that was because because if something is written now, it's already 8 months too old. Because of the process of getting something published and whatnot. And so so that was always I want to know what's going to happen because of this that's going on right now. And I was just like, none of these books are telling me any information. And then someone just pointed out, well, you want to read the book that's going to be written in 10 years after this is all done. And I was like, exactly. It's like, nobody knows what that is yet, And then I was just like, oh God, no wonder I don't want to read anything. Because I'm here. I don't need a book telling me about what's going on now. I'm here. I'm living it.
I know what's going on now. It's a part of my life, right?
I know. It was always so confusing to me. It was just like, these books are so old. Because even if they were just published, it was just like, what? I already know all this. It's just like, it was a really weird sort of understanding of I had this thought in my mind that authors somehow, people that wrote books somehow had more information. They didn't have more information. They just happened to write something down.
Right.
And it was like, it was this big light bulb went out. I mean, I was probably like 26, 27. This is newly sober. And I was kind of going through and kind of involving myself in the world in a way that I hadn't previously. And it was just mind-boggling that nobody knew anything more than I did. They guessed, just like I guessed. And that's what comes up when I read this idea that, knowing, people thinking they know what's going on is the biggest illness that's out there. And it's like, you don't. And, and to gather, it's good to gather other people's ideas. And so I'm not trying to say don't read. I don't want to do it, but,
don't worry. You're never going to stop me from reading. I'm a very avid reader. You know that.
I just want to make sure anybody listening, that's not what I'm saying. But it was such an interesting sort of thing. It's just like, nobody knows what's going to happen. And yet there are going to be 30 books that tell me what's going on now and what that might turn into. And in 10 years, there's going to be a book that's going to look back on this time. And that's the book that I want to read. But I'm not going to want to read it then. I want to read it now. So that I can be like, okay, now this makes sense. Because I want to know how it plays out, not how you think it's going to play out. Because that's going to give me information about Tao. Right, that's going to be information. It's going to give me information about this is the master plan, right? Just like it says in the 70 in was that 73 or 71? Within it lies everything in its master plan, 73. It's like, that's what I want to know, the master plan. I don't want to know some guy's, thought about, oh, well, if this happens, then this happens. Burr, burr, burr. And I'm just like, I don't care. I can do that.
That makes me think about what we were saying before about understanding God, because that's one of the things I've always struggled with. And, the whole idea of God's already seen everything and everything's already happened. We're saying, I want to know how it all plays out. Like, what's the end game? Like, how, because it doesn't, and I guess it's the way my mind works. I can't fathom free will and me being allowed to make choices, but God has already seen everything and everything's already happened and he knows what's going to happen. Like, what? Man, my mind cannot grasp that. That just but if it's true, I want to know how it all plays out. I'm not saying that it's not true. It's just very hard for my brain to understand, you said, the master plan. I want to know, though. I really want to know, Martin John.
And that's that. To point out that 71 is the current plague. That wanting to know that and then coming up with ideas that and all of that. To be aware that we do not know. We don't know. And that's the we'll see. We don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we will see, won't we?
We will. One way or another.
All right, my friend. Well, thank you very much.
Absolutely. I love you, dear.
You have a wonderful weekend. I love you right back, my friend.
Bye-bye. Okay. I'm going to bring up Cool Beans. It's been a minute. Hope you're having a good time. I can't imagine you're not. Hey, man.
Good morning, man. How's it going?
It's going well.
Good.
Having a nice day talking about the Tao, as I tend to do.
Actually surprised to see you on this morning. I think you've made every weekend for.
I have, it's become a thing. I not fatigued or feeling like I need it. It's beautiful. I really love doing it. And sometimes on a Friday, I'm like, oh, I don't have to do it tomorrow. And I'm like, oh. Man, I probably will. Yeah. It's great. And I love it. This gives me that sort of, there are times in the day where I'll pick up my Tao and I'll read it and I'll sit. I'll just kind of sit with it. I'll read a verse or whatever. But this is different. This is something that I really, it gets me giddy sometimes, it's I'm just talking about the Tao, and it's fun, and it's coming, I get to interact with people on it and stuff. And I do, sometimes I think, well, I'm going to have to take a day just to not do it and to go through that, or a weekend and to not do it just for the withdrawal, just to be able to be let me experience what it's like without it. And do I feel lonely, or do I feel frustrated, or I feel,
exactly.
Is there, and because again, if I'm going to say it makes me giddy, well, it's doing something to me, right? It's doing something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So a couple of pieces with that is, in the morning, to hear you come on the weekends is a really cool thing, because it doesn't sound like a habitual nature. It doesn't sound like you're doing it out of habit because that time space is put aside. Yeah, you really can hear the joy in talking about the different pieces just by hearing which number is going to come up next. This is cool. It's like being on a familiar trail with people that have never ridden it before. And you're like, dude, you're really going to like this section. Why don't you go ahead and lead? It's good stuff like that. I just took 2 days out of the gym kind of for the same thing.
Yeah.
Hey, timing wasn't quite right. Where am I? Let's see what my body's going to do. Let's see what my mind's going to do. And when was that? That was Wednesday. So Thursday and Friday out of the gym. Didn't ride, didn't do nothing. Went to work a little late, sat with coffee a little bit longer, and we had just traces of snow through town, but I still got to scrape sidewalks and de-ice school and things of that nature. So, the morning starts hour and a half earlier yet. And that does get in the way of the routine.
Yeah.
And in that, I kind of sat back and I asked the universe, I'm like, okay, man, well, what do you got next?
Mm.
And the universe is like, do you really want to know? Oh boy, I'm going to, I'm going to slap you with this. And wow, suddenly somebody from a year ago in my life pops up with, salty attitude and mentality and stuff like that. And then, somebody else is reaching out, after being ghosted for however long. And then you just got, people in your life that are just love.
Yeah.
And sometimes it feels like they're breadcrumbing you. And other times it feels like they just, need to bathe in your love. And it's like, wow, all of a sudden the universe is like, here, try all these on for size at once. And,
Yeah.
oh, by the way, here's a whole new personality. And it was like, whoa, this is so cool. So, in finding balance with all of that and a couple other things, like I've had my house up on Furnish Finder and I'd been crossed paths with like, it's like, oh, okay, you seem like a normal person and let's have another conversation or two. I was like, whoa, creepy. No, and, so then suddenly it's like, here's somebody that, kind of carries my mentality. They just want to live at high altitude to train. And, so mornings and, things like that are going to like fit, I think. So those are cool things. So asking you about the Tao a while back ago, I think you said that number 39 was like a turning point where, everything past 39 in the Tao has one direction and everything before has another. Is that
There's
true?
38, but yeah, there's part one, which is about our individual experience, sort of, and how we can address it as individuals. And part two kind of starts to lean. So the I Ching is built off of Confucianism and Taoism, right? So the I Ching is borrows from both. And Confucius, great. I'm a loose fan of Confucius. I'm a hardcore fan of the Tao Te Ching and Lao Tzu. Confucius came a little after the Tao Te Ching and Lao Tzu. And Confucius is concerned with how you act in society and how society needs to be balanced and how leaders and individuals work within a group. And the second part of Tao, because not a lot of people were able to read. The only people that were really able to read when the Tao Te Ching was written were leaders. And so it was written sort of for leaders to be like, hey, this is how you conduct yourself. And then this is how you conduct your society or your people or yourself within society. So we read number 71 and 73. And if we were to look today, which are later in the Tao, obviously, if we look at those, to be aware one does not know is healthy for all things. Avoiding awareness of this is the current plague. By acknowledging you have been infected, you become aware and move towards healing. That is about knowing what is outside of you, knowing what other people are doing and why they're doing it, right? Like, so when we take it from that stance, of course, there are other ways to interpret it. You can see, oh, this is about interacting with your surroundings. Interacting with people around you. And then there's the 73, nothing falls through. There are men who love feeling and to do so they kill. There are men who love feeling and to do so they remain calm. Who's to say which will experience more turmoil? This is about judging others. If you're coming into my life and you're like the person, like if your stance on life is think positively and someone comes in and thinks negatively and you judge them, like what this is saying is like, who's to say if you're right or they're right? Just do what you do, right? Like, and so this is about, so the second half is can tend to be more about interacting with others than it is about interacting with yourself and your experience of Tao alone with yourself. Now, anyone can bounce back and forth. Like we can look at this as my experience of feeling, my experience of killing and remaining calm, my experience, and it will tend to answer questions as well. But in the grand scheme, there is two parts, and that division is between 30 is at 38.
38.
Yeah,
Okay.
38 is where that starts.
Okay.
Second part. Yeah.
Well, very cool. Since I'm looking outwards, and let's. Geez, I got to go kind of the other direction. For some reason, I've been sitting on 24 this morning.
Wonderful. Yeah. 24 is do what is to be done.
Well, there you go. Hey, thanks, man. That was a good morning.
Yeah. Do what is to be done.
Standing on just right there in the towel.
Standing on tiptoes robs you of firm footing. Rushing ahead robs you of knowing where you are. Looking at yourself robs you of seeing. Boasting of yourself robs you of your brilliance. Overpowering others robs you of your power. Clinging to your work robs you of longevity. If you want to align with Tao, just do what is to be done and then stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh,
How cool is that?
That seems so right. You know what I mean?
It does.
And the thing is like you can see, like, one, all of those things are about you, right? So that is that.
Yeah.
But when you start looking at it, like standing on tiptoes, why would I stand on tiptoes? Oh, maybe because someone else. Rushing ahead. Why am I rushing ahead? Maybe I'm under the influence of people around me. You know, looking at yourself, right? Why would I want to look at myself? Maybe I'm comparing. Boasting of yourself. Once again, you're comparing. Overpowering others robs you of your power. Clinging to your work robs you of longevity.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is your take on that? Clinging to your work robs you of longevity.
Well,
there's a reason why I asked this, and let me put the question out there first this way, is because I've come across many people who, and I see this when they retire, and a friend of mine has taken time out of work, which thought was going to only be like 6 months to a year to start a healing journey and move in a different direction. And suddenly these people are more lost without their work than, they were when they had it. They had like purpose. So now that they don't have their job, they seem like they're crumbling.
Yeah. I would, that happens. And that happens because that isn't who they were, and they don't know who they are. And when you don't know who you are, it's difficult to, find firm footing. Once again, standing on tiptoes robs you of firm footing. So clinging to your work, we can talk about that line specifically. Clinging to your work robs you of longevity because things change. The world changes. If you cling to your work, like if I were to look at my Tao, and that's my work, right? Well, this is my work, and I'm going to, and if I were to cling to it, and this is who I am. This is my identity. Eventually, both I and that text, and that specific translation is going to be out of date. It's not going to resonate with people. There are going to be other translations that are going to resonate more. And because I'm clinging to this thing that I did, I then become irrelevant. My work becomes irrelevant. So there's a painting. It's on the Sistine ceiling.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about, but what about in art?
Well,
you're an artist as well.
Yeah. So it's on the Sistine ceiling. It's Michelangelo, and it's the flaying of, I forget who it is, who's getting flayed, but it's the idea is, and Michelangelo was the person being flayed by the devil. So the devil is flaying a person on the Sistine ceiling. and again, I don't know what the saint or what the person that Michelangelo is the stand-in for in that. But it's the idea that you, as you get older, you will see your irrelevance pass. You will see, you will find yourself becoming irrelevant. And Michelangelo understood that. And as he was aging, he knew that, and he put himself in the position of being flayed by the devil. And the reason that the speculative reason is that he understood that even though you're going to fail at being relevant, you have to, forever, right? You have to challenge anyway. You have to do it anyway. You have to go out, do your work, knowing, and this is in my terminology, that it's stupid anyway. Don't cling to it. Don't think it's so important. Do your work, and eventually you're going to be praised, or you're going to be rewarded with irrelevance. And that is, I mean, Michelangelo struggled with it, right? Like it is in our past. And that's what this means. Cling to your work, and robs you of longevity, because what you're going to believe is that you're going to be irrelevant forever.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Kind of. Kind of.
It's a concept that, you know, like, when you start to understand that, oh wait, am I becoming irrelevant? You know, like when we get older, like there are more younger people than there are older people. And then marketing and everything starts to gear toward them, and we start to become irrelevant. And we if we cling to, and this could be our work, this could be our identity, this could be our looks, this could be, you know, whatever. But as we lose that, and if we cling to that which we're losing, then we start to believe. Come back up if you can. You're going to start to believe that you aren't going to have, like, no one's going to talk about you. And then when you die, you're over. And everything, and that's all happening in your mind, because you may be talked about, but you wouldn't believe that. Right. So it's not, it's not necessarily that you're going to actually rob yourself of longevity, because if you have children, you're going to continue. If you inspired people in your life, that's going to continue. But just like all of this stuff in the Tao is like, you are going to believe that that's the case, and that's going to cause you to, have a rough life. Like you're going to be dying, and you're going to be bitter. You're going to get older, and you're going to get bitter. And that's going to affect how you see your life, and that's going to affect how you see yourself in the world.
Yeah.
All of this is like, you have firm footing, but because you stand on tiptoes, well, why are you doing that? Right? Yeah. You know where you are, but you're rushing ahead, so you're not paying attention. That's all in your mind. It's all happening as a matter of course in your life, you know.
Yeah. You know, that's really cool, because in asking the universe for what's coming up, and all of a sudden there's, plethora of things everywhere, looking for, who's asking for, who's showing up, how they're showing up, where I am in the middle of all these different things. All of a sudden is a really cool place. At the same time, if I sit back and it's not, getting to the top of the mountain. It's the journey along the way.
Right.
And to sit in the middle of that, it's like, this is kind of cool. So, right on, dude.
And if we look at that, thank you. Yeah, I can go ahead and continue talking about this line and stuff. But yeah, thank you so much.
So I want to ask a question about that too, because in each one of those things, you can practice and make yourself stronger.
Right.
Right. You can get better balance. If you're on your tiptoes, you're working micro muscles. If you're, in every one of those pieces that they mentioned there, you can grow inner strength and show up stronger. So instead of losing your identity in your work, and not being that bitter old person, you can continue to be the person that shows up, just openly with love. And then yet you've lost nothing.
Right. All of those things. So if you stand on tiptoes, what it says is it robs you of firm footing.
Yeah.
For a time. But then eventually you want to have firm footing.
Yeah.
Rushing ahead robs you of knowing where you are. Yes, you can rush ahead and, maybe you'll get lost. Maybe you won't, but that's not a bad thing. Right? You can benefit from that. Looking at yourself robs you of seeing. So you can, if you're totally only looking at yourself, maybe it robs you of you seeing what's around you and predict. It gets you predicting what you're going to see, and you can't see what the truth is.
That is a really cool thing. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's absolutely it's all great. And what it says here at the end is, if you want to align with Tao, just do what is to be done and then stop. Yeah. It doesn't say don't stand on tiptoes. Yeah. It doesn't say don't rush ahead. It doesn't say don't look at yourself, or don't boast about yourself, or don't overpower others, or don't cling to your work. It says do what is to be done.
Yeah.
It is not telling you what to do. It is there. See, and that's the thing. So many of these verses get you to presuppose what it's talking about. And then you don't hear that last line that says, do what is to be done. Well, what is to be done if I'm standing on tiptoes? Well, stand on tiptoes. What is to be done if I have firm footing? Well, have firm footing. And then stop. And then at some point when you stop doing the one thing, you do the other. Yeah. It's not telling you which is better. It's telling you that one thing will rob you of something. Right? Overpowering others will rob you of your power. So do it. And then when it's done, stop. So you can regain your power. So that you can obtain longevity. Cling to your work, but then let it go.
I like that. What a cool balance in the universe when you ask the questions and it shows up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right on, dude. Hey, great morning. And I would have to say it's so cool in the morning to hear your excitement over the bits and pieces that you pull on your own that you start off with. And lately, when you mentioned we haven't talked much, and that's basically been what you've pulled in numbers. I've just sat with that. It really didn't have much to talk about. Just kind of like, okay, let's run with that.
I take it as it comes.
Right on, brother. Have a great day. Thank you, man.
You too.
Bye.
So many of these verses, have those two sides to it. That side of telling you one thing, getting you in that space, in that head space of this is the right way to do it, and this is the wrong way to do it. But that's not what this. Tao says that nowhere, that this is the right way to go about it. It says the master does these things, and the master. We hear in some of these, the master picks up weapons. The master, lives in a damaged state. It's the idea that you allow yourself to be as you are, where you are, and that unfolds into who you are. Taylor Hills is going to join me. I believe this is the first time we've talked. We'll see. Taylor? Sometimes people join me and either have to set up their mic or they don't necessarily want to join me. She muted. Maybe she's on a call. What I normally do is leave you on for a minute if we don't talk, if we don't interact at all. And then I'll take you right off. And if she is on a call, like maybe it just bumped her out and she wanted to be on, and so whatever, it's no big deal. She dropped off on her own. So thank you, Taylor, for listening. I appreciate your coming up. And yeah, so this is Tao of the Day. I'm here Monday through Friday, usually, like Cool Beans was talking about, 6 a.m. Central Time. I have been... JK's coming back up. I don't know. Again, that could be a mistake. Hey, JK.
No, I only did that one time. I didn't.
Oh, okay. So this is purposeful. Go on.
It's purposeful, but I was thinking about what you were saying, and I'm sitting here in that park that I always come to, and I always like to come visit this one park in Manhattan because I've come here in so many different ways, so many different I don't know, phases of myself, um, to seriously, just losing, crying, upset, just a mess and chaotic, to peaceful. And I think the last time I came here, it was the first time I think I didn't even realize I was here. And I was like, this place feels familiar. And I was like, oh, I know where I am. And I remember sitting down on the bench I'm sitting on and looking around, and I saw a number, and I have my little pocket edition of your book that I bring with me on my journeys. Um, and I look at the number, and I read it, and I was like, wow, all these chairs, like none of them have numbers. It's just that one. And you think, the universe is speaking to you. So I read it and I laughed at the end. It was 55 is the one that I had pulled. And I'm back here now and I'm looking at all these chairs and they all have the same fucking number on it. And so, when you were talking to Cool Beans and just when you're talking about, the footing and all of that stuff, it really is just being aware and how funny our awareness can be because you can't see all the numbers all the time,
Right.
And in that moment, I saw one chair with one number on it.
Mm-hmm.
And now I look here and I'm like, they all have numbers on it. And it's all the same number.
And
And it's just stupid. And it's just funny to think about what you are aware of. So in the Tao, talking about that awareness of your footing and all this stuff, just be aware of yourself, right? Be aware of what it does.
But, and I would also not make the assumption that all of this is where, like understanding and this is the plague of knowing and all of this. Those numbers may have not been there. Now, that's not to say that the numbers were added between the time you went there and noticed only one chair having numbers and now. But that's saying that, well, there is a possibility, however remote, I suppose, that you jumped timelines. And I've talked about this before. I don't know if you've heard me talk about this, but the idea that the timeline in which you were there, in which only one chair had a number, and the timeline in which you are now, in which all the chairs have the number, could be different. They could be different timelines, and these chairs could be different. And it could be all sorts of things, right? So there's all sorts of, and to just be in awe and to be aware without kind of adding the story of like, oh, last time there must have been and I wasn't aware. Well, maybe last time you were aware and there was only one chair with a number on it.
Yeah,
and this time.
I wasn't thinking that I was not aware. It was more about what you being in the moment and what you need in that moment.
Right. Absolutely.
And right at that moment, my awareness brought me to one chair and one number.
Right.
And how wonderful that is. And when I'm here now, now this number is not so unique, but I get the experience of the other because that's what I need today. And so that's really the magic part is that, having this awareness and awareness being funny thing, maybe they could have all been facing the other direction.
Yep.
Maybe these chairs, it doesn't matter what the circumstance, but how cool that you can come back to the same place and you're still different. and it's a still different version of you. And we were talking about this morning. Who are you? I don't know, because I'm constantly changing and I'm constantly growing and evolving into the next version of me. And in
Absolutely.
that moment, what I need to be aware of is very different from the prior moment. You know, that
Hmm.
day I needed to see that one number, and
That's
I
right.
needed to read through that Tao, and I did.
And you
And it
needed
was a
to also
beautiful
tell
experience.
yourself it was special and a beautiful experience. And there's this one number and it's the only one. And it's like, oh, and I get to like read Observing Virtue and I get to have this kind of experience. And that's the awe that we want in the world. And then you come and it's just like, oh, 55 everywhere. like
Yeah.
what the heck?
And
You
that's
know, like
so
there's like
cool to me. Like,
this isn't special, like this isn't like, but it's like, yes, it absolutely is,
it's
and
so
it's special
magical.
for
Yeah,
that
exactly.
in and of itself. That's why it's magical, and we don't have to tell any story about it. We can just be like, wow, I
Exactly.
look at my experience. This is how different my experience was than everybody else that was sitting here. Saw 55 on every chair. I got to have the experience of seeing the one, and it's speaking to me, and me understanding what it meant to read 55. You know, inner strength and harmony, whatever. You know, so yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
sorry. I'm sitting here laughing, agreeing with you, and I'm on mute.
Yeah,
I didn't mean to
no,
be. I was
absolutely.
listening. But
No,
yeah, that
I
was
didn't
the
notice that you
magic
were on mute.
part.
Yeah.
Um, I was just like, just because I sat here and that, and it was funny because I wrote my journal that day, and I remember saying in my journal, I literally wrote, I was like, I wonder how he planted this number, because it was literally the only, and I was talking about you, making a
No.
joke about how
Yeah.
you plant stuff. But it was just funny because it really was just that one number that day.
Mm-hmm.
It really was. And it's just funny to look around and be here and see the magic in all the numbers too, and
Right.
see that other side and be aware of that and think it's just as magical.
Beautiful.
Um, I don't know. That's why I came back up to share that. To
Well,
share
thank
that
you.
I saw
I'm
all the
glad.
numbers now.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm glad.
that was it.
Yeah, magic is around us, man, and we just have to be open to receive it.
Yeah, and I'm happy to be. And that was one difference too, to see my family. And I didn't share this earlier, but being able to look at people in the eyes again, um,
Oh yeah.
and not hiding. You know, I was so scared for anybody to see me. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know what your experience of me was, but when we first met, how guarded I felt,
Mm-hmm.
where I just didn't want you to see me because I didn't like myself that much. And it was
Mm-hmm.
really so sad when I look back at it. But then we looked back, if we look at 73 or whatever, I needed that spot, right? I needed to be in that spot so that I can have the awareness I have today and carry that forward. And
Right.
that's magical as well. And, but looking at people in the eyes again, has been an experience. And it's really funny because the reflex for me is to not do that. I actively, it's like when you were talking about when you were looking at your feet, when you walk, I did that too a lot.
Mm.
And you have to kind of say, yeah, for 10 seconds, I'm going to look straight ahead, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to like, what are you trying to hide from? And it wasn't so much the other person. I think it was just myself and how that made me feel to be seen. And it was really an interesting concept. And it's really interesting to be able to look a stranger and somebody I love in the eyes now, and just to
Yeah.
be able to try to see them and see me through them. It's a whole different ball game. It's kind of like seeing one number and also being able to look back and get to see all of them as well. And so that part of the journey is interesting for me, and not being so afraid. And then, when we're talking about 73 and talking about the net, having that trust to do that trust fall, to be able to let people see you in that vulnerable side, and finding how to do that was, I did a lot of that this weekend. And Sometimes I was better at it than others, but being able to be just me in whatever moment I was in, and it's hard. It is not hard. It's a challenge, and I like a challenger. So I've been trying to step up to that challenge. But those are the little things that I don't know that I was expecting to discover, but they're magical, and I'm really appreciative of those experiences. And I look at the parts where I go, maybe why couldn't I look in that person in the eye now? Because I do love myself, and I
Right.
do believe in the net, and I do believe that I'm being held. And that was a beautiful experience to look at somebody and allow them to see you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Life
Well,
is easy.
anyway, it is. It is. Well,
All
all
right.
right. Well, thanks for listening to me again, and thanks for conversing.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right. I'll talk to you again later.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, we're going to wrap that up. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Tao of the Day. Like I said, usually weekdays, but I've been doing a lot of weekends recently. I just love doing it. And, who knows? Might do it tomorrow, might not. Might do it at another time. But life is easy, and I just keep doing what I do. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Martin John. If you want to get together with me, you can always check out the links on my profile. And until next time, keep recovering yourself.